Isn't this a cool venue? I love this place. First time I've been here. But our topic today, in health innovation, one of the key components is talent. And how do you find that talent? How do you retain that talent? And how do you motivate that talent? I'd like to set the stage a little bit here, but let's do introductions. Sean?
Hi everyone, I'm Sean Rapp. I'm the Director of Talent Acquisition for Novant Health, focusing on operations in the greater Winston-Salem market.
Rick?
Rick Sanford. I am the founder of XOR Services, a consultancy based on supporting innovation.
Yep. Then hi folks, I'm Ken Russell. I'm gonna give you a little bit more. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer for what's called the New College Institute in Martinsville, Virginia. But I'm also of Charlotte. I'm a Charlotte native, so it's good to be home and good to see all the stuff that's happening just in the past few years. So pretty cool stuff.
And Fred, can you introduce yourself?
Sure, good morning. So Fred Holston, I am a healthcare strategist for Sirius CDW, the former CTO of Novant Healthcare, and passionate about this space. So thanks for having me.
All right. I want to set the stage a little bit. I work in mergers and acquisitions and franchising companies, and we're seeing an exit from corporate America, high-level talent. And the idea is, how do you stop that? How do you keep them in corporate America? Because that's one of the most important components of innovation, I believe, is the people side of it. Eric, I want to introduce somebody in the audience. Is there a mic? Does somebody have a mic there? Okay.
Hi, my name is Eric Redden. Good, Mark.
Yeah. Eric and I work together franchising companies, but he's going to tell you a little bit about the environment of people leaving corporate America and buying businesses.
So I'm a vice president of development for United Franchise Group. It's the largest privately held franchise organization on the globe. We have about 1,600 franchisees in 80 countries between our 10 brands. What we've been seeing over the last few years is people leaving for a number of reasons, but mostly because they don't want to make somebody else money anymore. They want to make money for themselves. So when you look at franchising, people are coming to us because they've worked in corporate America till they're 40, 50, 60 years old. And then they realize one day they wake up and they say, I'm taking it in my own hands. And we saw that in 2020. People bought businesses because they were let go. And they looked at the market and they're like, well, I'm not going to wait till somebody hires me again. I'm going to go get my own business. And then 2021, the same thing, come back into the office. No, I don't want to do that. I don't want you to tell me what to do anymore. I'm taking it in my own town. And now with the market and the stocks, people don't want to wait for what's going to happen. Is the market going to come back up? They're going to liquidate their funds. They're going to go out and buy a business. And we've been seeing more and more of that happening because people are looking for the next 5 to 10 years. Let's build a business up, sell it off as an asset, or build a business up and pass it off to my kids who are finishing high school or college and let them have their own business and set them up.
Yeah, and what really shocked me was Eric and I franchised a company, and these franchises are anywhere from $400,000 to $500,000 to buy. My first advertisement, I got 147 people wanting to buy these franchises. Almost every single one of them was six-figure corporate executives or employees that were leaving corporate America and going to have their own company. So with that being said, as a backdrop, Sean here works in pulling talent for Novant. They do a real good job. So can you give us a little bit of your thoughts on how you're bringing talent in?
Yeah, I think we've seen a renegotiation of the social contract around work a little bit post-pandemic. Now we are no longer in the space of you're lucky to come work for us. It's the other way around. And that's the way we have to approach talent. We have to make everything about simplifying the experience, engaging the talent, and demonstrating our value in a world of choice. There are no shortage of places for wonderful talent to go and to work these days. And so the way that we're doing that is, putting that up front, really showing them why Novant, for example, is an employer of choice. What are the benefits that we have? What are the career path that you're going to have here, and what value would you have over something like working for yourself? And also incorporating those benefits that you like about working for yourself into the work that you would have here at Novant, whether that's more flexible time, more time with your family, demonstrating how we can provide some of the benefits that you're looking for in working for yourself here at Novant Health. And that's something that I think we've all seen here, and something that we hope to listen to the talent marketplace as much as possible to make that happen.
Do you think money's the biggest motivator for talent?
I think money is a motivator, as everyone would say. I would be lying if I didn't say as a recruiter that money wouldn't be a motivator. I think we all, it's a job, right? We all do it for money. It's not charity. But I do think from the talent that I've seen, the people I've had conversations with, and I think everyone here would agree, is that there's more to what you do than just the dollars that you get out of it.
Yep.
We would all be probably working a little bit different jobs if we were just money focused. I know I would.
Sure.
Sure.
And so what we want to do is help them navigate their way to that end goal that they have. And I think that comes from not only acquiring the talent correctly, but also managing and developing that talent when it gets here. And I won't speak out of my lane because that's not really what I do, but from my colleagues here at Novant, there is an incredible emphasis on opportunities to grow. Our way to tell your story and navigate your way through Novant Health, and then even possibly, this might be blasphemous to say, but being a great place to come from. I think that's okay to say too. Not everybody will spend their entire careers at Novant, and I think that's something that we've seen time and time again, is that the 20-year, 30-year, 40-year career may be going by the wayside, but there are companies where it is a great place to be from.
Yeah.
Amazon comes to mind, Google comes to mind, some of the bigger tech players, and that's what we want here at Novant. Is for you to say, I came from Novant Health, and for that next person to say, oh, okay, well, we know you've got what it takes to work here.
Yeah. Fred, you handle a lot of strategic projects in that and bring together groups of key healthcare personnel. Can you give us a little bit of your feedback on the talent side of what you're doing in your projects, sir?
Yeah, and I think I agree, with what was just said, right? There's certainly how do you make it a great place to work. But I think if you look both at the provider and the tech side of the world, there are a couple of problems. Number one, even though it might be a great place to work, might be great benefits, the pay actually might be okay, we drive people hard. And in many ways, they just don't want to be driven that way. And technology is actually a negative in many cases, because we just keep adding technology, and we're not really moving the workload in the right direction. EHRs were a prime example of that. We did them for all the right reasons. We continue to do them for all the right reasons. They're a necessity in life, but they make the job somewhat harder. If you look on the tech side, from previous panel was kind of interesting, right? That we're not adopting certain things that have been there for a long time and are not really technically challenging anymore. But if you look on the tech side, developing really cool and interesting things that can actually impact care and make people's lives easier, we often don't assimilate that quick enough or do a great job of being able to get it into the thing. Those impact, in my estimation, the workforce. And why people want to work, why they would stay in healthcare. So even when we can, and I completely agree in making it a great place to work, but even when you can, I still don't know that we're doing the right things to make the job as easy is not the word. The job will never be easy in any of the cases, but make them enjoyable. And in the case of, let's say, nursing, be able to do what they like to do, which is spend time with patients as opposed to messing around with things. So from my project's perspective, we spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to smooth that out, how to make technology work for them, how to make it disappear, and yet be doing them a great job and let them actually begin to complete the tasks they have to do every day and spend more time interacting with people.
What do you think is one of the key motivators of high-level talent?
I think respect for what they do and the ability to get the job done. I think that, for me, the motivator through my career, even though I'm a tech guy, the motivator for my career is not seeing projects through. And that means I'm either pulled from it, I've changed the job, the situation's changed, they never finished the project, whatever it happened to be. I want to see it done. And I think if you look at healthcare professionals, they want to see things through. My brother's a physician, I'm not, but he's a physician. And he likes to follow his patients. He wants to keep up with them, which the modern healthcare system doesn't really let him do very well. But he wants to see that to the end of the row. I think nurses want to see the end of patients feeling good and having a positive experience by their care. I think tech, whether you're entrepreneurial or whether you're just in the cog of the tech machine, you'd like to see that tech get to some place where it actually makes, I think, a true difference. And pay is one of them. We all work for pay. We all have to. I agree completely with that. But I think you also have to have job satisfaction. And to me, that comes from getting to the end of the row and seeing positive outcome from what you're doing.
Fred touched on something really important there, Mark, and that's impact. Right? There is being able to have impact in your work can drive the rest of everything around it. You can take different salaries, different compensation packages, different work hours for the chance to have impact. I know I have, and probably all of us have here. I used to recruit in the special operations community of the military, and they don't do that kind of extreme levels of work and dedication for the money.
Yeah,
they do it to see things through to the end, to have that impact, and to have those barriers cleared so that they can have that impact. They go to those special units because they know they're going to get the best of everything so that they can make things happen when they need to.
Sean, I think that's a real interesting point because my wife is involved in a big technology merger and high-level tech people, but management is having trouble motivating them, and it's almost like a disaster waiting to happen. So, Ken, do you have any ways that management gets in the way of good talent?
Oh, yeah. So, you may have heard this term called quiet quitting. That's happening quite a lot, where people are just kind of cruising along in their roles and just kind of doing the bare minimum and not really contributing. And you have to ask yourself why. Well, we've been through a pandemic, so that's probably the big reason. People just have been shaken to their core. Nothing quite like a disorienting dilemma to just kind of figure out what you are, who you are, what you're going to be doing the rest of your life. But if you're sitting in a job and you're quiet quitting now, a year or months after, and you kind of figured out, why am I still here, and what are the things that are keeping me from going? It's probably management has a factor too, right? And a lot of times, especially in your situation, we're talking about mergers and acquisitions where the company gets bigger and bigger and bigger, but the management structure stays the same. The management isn't really trained to deal with an enterprise level of talent. Yeah. They may be used to 4, 5, 60, 70 people, but not hundreds or thousands of people. So the big thing that I see quite a lot is people coming in and saying, how do I deal with an enterprise level of talent? How do I have the HR systems for that? How do I have the training systems for that? How do I not only train the folks who they get excited about being in an organization that's larger, but how do I get my management staff upskilled to be able to deal with the larger staff?
Yeah. What's one of the true enjoyments that high-level talent gets at the end of the day? Like I do things for legacy, and I see a lot of people buy businesses for legacy, and they want to relate that back to the talent inside a corporate company. What kind of legacy or are they building that gives them a good feeling, at the end of the day or at the end of their career?
That's a really great question. I think there's altruism in all that we do, right? At least when we start out that way. I think to your point earlier about the reason we do things is beyond money, right? But what's really weird, especially in my generation, we were taught that go out there and get that dollar, go out and make that money. And it was kind of counter to what we all kind of grew up thinking, that we were supposed to help people and do things. But next thing I'm told to go make as most as you can. It was really kind of a dichotomy. But I'm going to go back to my very first job. I started teaching, and it's not even on my resume anymore, really. It's so long ago. But I started teaching at UNC Chapel Hill. And it was a really cool gig because it was not just students, but it was faculty and staff teaching them technology. And I had Chancellor Friday's wife in my class once. And she just wanted to be able to talk about technology at cocktail parties and things like that. But once she kind of came in and learned it, she was able, I can apply this to everything I've learned my entire life. And I thought that was the difference. So talk about a legacy, is how do you empower someone with technology to talk about all that they know and all that they do? And I think that's a good example of how to do that with the changing
good.
talent.
Yeah, and one of the things that kind of got hurt with the pandemic is the sense of community,
Yeah.
right? And how it hurt, you know, and I always believe that community spawns collaboration, right? So you don't get that sense of collaboration as much today as you did, you know, 5-10 years ago, right? And I think that's been hurt since the pandemic.
Yeah, well, the collaboration along that lines, getting high talent to work together as a team and pull them in. And in your job, Rick, you bring a lot of different high-level talent together to achieve a goal. So what's one of the hardest, or what's one of the most productive things to pull the team together?
Well, you know, common tool set, right? You know, try to get out of the way of innovation, right? Try to get the fact that you're 1,000 miles apart. Try to bridge that gap somehow. So, you know, obviously the Zoom calls, the thing, but do things together, right? You know, inhibit or keep that innovation and collaboration going online as much as you can, right?
Yeah.
And try to get them together, you know, physically, because that's really missing, right? Is that physical contact. We're human beings, right? So, you know, trying to get them together, use the technology when that's not available, right? And then build support systems around them to allow them to not worry about all the other things that, you know, a consultant would have to worry about, and make them productive.
Sean, do you guys do team building things in Novant to get the talent to achieve a goal and that satisfaction of achieving that goal?
Yeah, I think we absolutely have to. I don't think we found that there's really no substitute for that. You know, over the pandemic, I think nothing has been made clearer that I don't know if we need more Zoom meetings. There's scientific data behind what your brain does during a Zoom meeting, how your mind is engaged or not engaged during that. And the mental load of that, I know for me, is exhausting.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting for my colleagues too. So having worked at a tech company previous to this that was pretty much fully remote for most of it, and now here in the medical space where, you know, we want people to be more in the office, there's a hybrid approach that we're trying to get to, of allowing people the flexibility to be where they want to be and work where they need to work and be on the timelines that they can, but also providing them opportunities to engage with their colleagues when they can, whether that's setting up Zoom rooms where they just hang out and talk with each other, and some do work and some, you know, just kind of shoot the breeze, or having in-person engagements annually where they all come in together, meet each other, learn about the hospitals that they work for, meet the staff, meet the hiring leaders they do, because that all goes to that impact. I'm going to work better, I'm going to work harder, I'm going to work faster if I know that the person that I hired for Mark, if I go and meet Mark. Yeah. And I get to learn a little bit about you, and I get to know what this person is going to do. Yep. And honestly, it's a little bit of that I trust that the person that I hire is going to go and do something good with you, Mark, for example. So I think that kind of engagement really speaks to that mission, that impact part of it. And I think it's difficult to do that without some sort of meeting, some sort of trust, some sort of a collaboration.
Makes sense. Fred, how do you deal with the high-pressured environment where it seems like we're on call 24/7, you know, with the teams? And you had mentioned that. How do you handle that balance of technology pulling us into everything anytime?
Yeah, you know, that's a good question. I think that's part of society's problem right now is that we are on all the time, whether that's in a personal, social, and the way you interact with friends and family and all that other stuff, or whether that happens to be in the business thing. And I do think we have to find ways to unplug somewhat. I certainly think, I'm time zone different from a good part of my organization and my teams. And I find that I lose track of that it's too late, much later for them in their day. Their day's over probably when I want to reach out to them, and the reverse is true as well. And I think we have to find a way to deal with that. I don't actually know what it is. Your calendars and look, am I busy? And I block out time in the, certain parts of the morning to try to keep people from booking in there. It doesn't work. And so, I don't know. And, the remote thing for me, I've been remote for, quite a while, long before the pandemic, but I'm not social in the sense that I'm really social, but I do social drive-by, from thoughts. And it used to be that I would, as I would have thoughts or think we need to go do things, I would just call it drop by and, have social conversations with people and socialize these ideas. And we find by the time you got to a meeting, it was, yeah, that sounds like, we've thought about that. That probably is a good idea. Now you come into a meeting and I've got 1 hour to try to convince you that we ought to do this really big thing and, go forward on the next thing. And that's hard to do when I would have socialized it a long time ago and the meeting could have been 10 minutes. So that idea, the idea that we lose track of the time zones, where people are, their personal time. I know none of us have ever kind of worked probably 8 to 5 and, been in at 8 and out at 5 and not kind of ignored it the rest of the time, probably in our careers. But we certainly have had more boundaries, and it's been easier to have your personal time and not go off. It is funny, just as a way to potentially do this. My boss recently has gone to 2 phones, a personal phone and a company phone. And by his own admission, he was gone on quasi vacation not long ago. He'd leave his corporate phone in the hotel room and take his personal phone. And he truly says that he finally got to do some disconnecting because while everybody understood he was on vacation, he was still responding to things because they were coming up. And when he set that phone aside and left it behind, he actually got some actual R&R or vacation in that process. So there's probably some ways like that by which we can, say that we're not connected all the time. But it's a tough problem.
I think Fred's hit on something really important there, and that is that first, that we're still navigating this, and I think that's an important admission of all of us, is that we don't know how this works, and that I know I left my car coming out of here, and I forgot my phone, and I had like a panic attack, like a small panic attack, and right back to go get it. Yeah. Just the thought of not having my phone on me for an hour so that I could speak to you all and be engaged with you was like, not that I'm going to pull it out here. That was a crazy thought, right? It's a crazy thing to think about. But that's the world that we live in now. And so I think Fred has also hit on another point of what his boss is doing, which is we did have a world in which there was work and there was life. And of course, there's bleed between all of that, but there really was, for most people, an office where you did work and then you left. And then that was it. And we have to replicate that somehow. I know for myself and for others at Novant, we are doing, we've done clear lines around like what is Teams or Slack for? What is email for? What is emergency texting for? Like, what are all of those for? I know that's really helped us define the lines of how we should be engaging with people in the virtual space now.
That's a good point. Ken,
Hey, Mark?
Go ahead.
Can I ask a question to the kind of the panel of the group, including yourselves? So most of us probably remember the day, my wife calls it when the black dial telephone existed, right? And you didn't have the always on me kind of communication. What happens though in the generation that, is coming up now where they've never known not being connected to whatever it is, family, friends, work, etc., and they've never known this idea of being being able to unplug or disconnect or relax in that kind of way. What does that do to our workforce? And, the go forward where it's just it's always moving, and there's never this opportunity to just say, whatever that means to individual people. But what happens with this new generation that doesn't know the difference?
Yeah. Can I check? Try that one?
Go ahead.
So about 6 or 7 years ago, I was working for Cisco at the time, and Bank of America and Cisco kind of got together to ask this very question. As the workforces were changing, because at that time they had like 5 different generations working at the same time, going from the boomers all the way down to Gen Z, right? And part of the study revealed that the younger folks would much rather have internet access persistent than a higher salary. And for the older folks, it's like, what? Mm-hmm. They didn't get that, to your point, Fred. But I think what's happened is that they grew up with that. They become, we call it born digital, right? So if you take it away, you may say to yourself, well, all we need to do is take it away from them. That's the wrong approach. We need to find ways to encourage balance, is the word I'm trying to use. And I think that part of that is just to reduce the noise. Yeah. There's a lot of technology, a lot of stuff going on. And try this next time you go on your date night with your significant other. Not only set aside your phones, which is almost impossible, by the way, but set your phones aside for at least 5 minutes. Try for 5 minutes. But look around, and you'll see that every other table are doing this. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's so persistent now. It's so part of who we are. I'm not so sure we can, Fred. And the question really should be, is like, should we? Should we disconnect totally? Is it even possible? Is it a bad thing? It's a bad thing if you're an older person, maybe. But if you're a younger person, I'm thinking, who are you, old guy? Why should I put my phone down? And that tells a lot in itself. So, yeah.
It's about balance.
Yeah, balance.
It's definitely about balance.
Yeah. Before we open it up to questions, I believe corporate America has a responsibility to respect their talent and discuss the work-life balance. Because, if you want to do a good job, you're going to go overboard, all right? And so I really do believe corporate America has that responsibility.
Yeah, and these are metrics we need to start measuring, right? Yep. That's something I don't think has really been approached very solidly. We show productivity time, but we don't show, hey, disconnect time, right?
I think that's one of the factors that causes people to leave corporate America. I really do. Now, it's time for question and answers. So if we can open it up.
Good morning. Derek Rogers from Novant Health. It's interesting the conversation you guys are having about technology. I've kind of looked at the future of technology and work through the lens of my 20-year-old kid. And I've kind of watched over time and the interesting dialogue we were just having about disconnecting, that really is a conversation about disconnecting from technology. We're the ones that have the problem with, because of the technology, it keeping us connected to work, because we never had the technology initially. We were working. The technology got introduced into our work, and now it extends our work. Whereas I watch my son, he spent 19, 20 years with the technology being personal. So he knows very much how to disconnect from work with his phone. And actually, it's more to how do we get him to use his phone for work purposes. So they've actually developed the skill that when they don't want to use the phone for work, they don't, because they've done 19, 20 years of it without it being a part of work. So it's a really interesting dynamic. And now when you look in generations, you have 5 different generations in the workforce. It's who's really having the problem disconnecting. The younger people don't seem to have much of an issue with being able to disconnect from work.
He's absolutely right. And it's causing intergenerational tensions amongst the leaders versus like ourselves who have fresh college graduates. We're hiring high schoolers right now to kind of do internship work with us. And they know very well, as you said, that your phone, your technology can take over your life should you want it to. And they delineate those lines whether you want them to or not a lot of times. And it's not personal. For them, it's a way to protect themselves from technology that they have known and grown up. Whereas I have a problem of like every new piece of tech, I want to try it out. I want to see how it can improve my life. until it destroys me, right? Or until it goes to Skynet and we're all toast for whatever reason. But it is a conversation that leaders and the younger generations need to have about expectations, about what they're looking for from this work, and what this, I think, also demonstrating the value of that technology to them in a way that they see as well, because we think it's valuable for one reason, but they may not agree with that. And more than likely, they probably don't, because management sees its value in a very different way than those who actually might be implementing it. So a conversation has to be
It's a good point. And this idea of a conversation is perfect, because it's organizations, as they mature, are going to have to be aware of this multi-generational impact, right? And it's incumbent upon the leadership team to be tolerant of that. In fact, I would probably introduce this concept of organization architecture. If you understand architecture and how those things work with technology, there's another kind of focus on organization architecture that focuses on a company's or organization's history and their tolerance for change, as well as their culture. And if a leadership team doesn't kind of approach it from that perspective, they're going to miss out. They're going to, tend to gravitate to what they know, and if they gravitate to what they know, they're going to lose, because they're focusing on their generation. They've got to focus on all of them, and again, go back to balance, go back to tolerance.
Any other questions?
Is this on? Okay. As someone who is multitasking in the back of the room, apologies for that. It's no indication of disrespect, but I think this is also an issue of DE&I, because as somebody who's kind of mid-level in her career, also of childbearing age, I mean, you kind of have to choose between a workload and do I climb the ladder? Do I put in the extra time and the extra effort to get to the place where I'm really realizing my potential professionally? Or do I take myself off of that track because I also want to have a family? So it's just a farther reaching problem, I think, than just what you all have addressed today. And I just wanted to ask if that's something that you've heard from other people as well, other women, other parents. Is that something?
I got a question for you in response. Would you talk to your employer about that question?
No.
There you go. See, and that's where I think employers should be engaged, and because that is a common issue, and it's just not talked about.
And an age-old one too, right? But the good news is that gap is closing, right? And corporate America is realizing that some of the top talent will want to have a family and will want to spend more time with the family than at work. Right? So using the technology, the productivity tools, the thing, you can do both, almost, depending on the job, obviously.
Well, and drawing a line, would it help you if your employer was helping you set the boundaries? You'd feel better about doing your job. You'd probably work harder. You wouldn't be thinking in the back of your mind, oh, I should put more hours in because I'm going to miss an opportunity.
Absolutely. And just workload in general. It's not even so much a manager or somebody telling me I need you to be on at these hours. It's just the amount of work that I have, and I want to do a good job. So I don't know. It's just a really interesting conversation to me. So thank you all.
I feel weird addressing this as a panel of 5 white men.
I did notice that as well. Yeah.
But we're not all necessarily white men up here, so that's the thing too. So some of us are multicultural. But I hear what you're saying. But I can add a little bit to your discussion about the diversity thing. I'm working with a team of a capstone course with the University of Virginia, masters in data science students right now. In fact, I met with them yesterday. And the topic is diversity of invention. Okay, the idea that where are we in this country with regard to patent grants and that sort of stuff. So we started the conversation with those students. In 2019, over 300,000 grants were awarded. 79% were to, you want to guess who? Men. Okay. And then 2.9% were to African Americans. Okay. So to your point earlier, Rick, this idea of what gets measured gets managed. I think it was Peter Drucker said that, or somebody said that. And it's true. And I think part of what we're trying to address here, and your question is spot on, is that we've got to start asking these questions. We've got to start, measuring these things, because otherwise we're just going to keep on going the way we always have been for thousands of years. So as we kind of get better at this, it's going to take a while, but keep asking those questions.
I'd like to add just one more thing to that, because I think it's a wonderful topic. And I think it should be about a conversation that your employer has with you about who you are and what you want as a person, and viewing you as more than an employee. And I know that that's something that I try to do with the people that work with me, is to ask, what are your goals? And they start giving me career goals, and I say, no, like, what are your goals? Like, your goals as a person, and that could be beyond what you do here. And if your goal is to have a family, having a honest but sensitive discussion about what that's going to take and what that's going to mean for your life and your workload, and balancing that, because you should be viewed as a long-term asset to this company.
Exactly.
Not a short-term, well, what can we get out of you in the next year?
Exactly.
I think that's the easy thing that we measure. That is the thing that we are able to measure now. But I think we can do a better job of looking at you holistically and measuring and helping you to achieve your goals beyond what you do for work.
Well, we're at the end here. I want to thank the panel for joining in, and I think this is a real issue. It really is. So, all right, the Health Tech Pitch Party is starting now, and hope you all enjoy it.
Thank you, folks.